Well, here I am, the first official episode of the Unorthodox Cooking Academy Podcast, a community driven by flavor and passion and breaking kitchen rules one meal at a time. My name is Gareth, and I have created the Unorthodox Cooking Academy to put together a community of people who want to learn more about cooking, who want to be more creative in the kitchen, who want to maybe deal with their relationship with food and their relationship with cooking, and think of it as like a book club for all things to do with food. And this podcast, hopefully, is going to be a part of it. I thought that I would record this first episode today to give you a little bit of an introduction into who I am. As you can see, I have no fancy studio, I have no fancy kitchen, and that's what I want the Unorthodox Cooking Academy to be, is to be real, is to be a place where normal people like you and me can come together and do all things cooking. So, in case you don't know, I live out here in Spain. It's early morning and I am out walking my dog on the campo. The campo in Spain is what they call the countryside. Hopefully you can't hear the noise of the cars in the background. But today what I wanted to do is to kind of like give you an introduction into who I am and why I got into cooking and what the Unorthodox Cooking Academy means to me. So like I said, my name is Gareth. I was born in Zimbabwe and raised in Zimbabwe, where I lived with my mom and my sister. We grew up in a single parent family. And for me, when I was young, I didn't have a very good relationship with food. And now this is no fault of my mom, but through circumstances, we were quite a poor family and food was expensive. So when we had a meal, this was when I was really young, when we had a meal, we kind of like had to eat everything that was on the plate. And if we didn't finish everything that was on the plate, it got put into the fridge. And before you had your next meal, you had to finish that meal. And these were in the days before, microwaves and heating up meals. So sometimes you could have 2 or 3 meals kind of like piled up all at once. So for me, right at the beginning, I kind of like was almost forced to eat. And as I got older, my relationship with food wasn't that great. Sometimes I ate, sometimes I didn't. And even still now, I still struggle with my relationship with food. It is a lot better. But I find that sometimes, especially when stress is high, my eating habits kind of like go out in the window. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have the most perfect eating habits and that all my meals are balanced and all that sort of stuff. I still have things that I really love, and when I eat them, I have to eat them all. And I find that because of those challenges that I had in the past, I can eat really fast. And so for me, kind of like cooking was a means to an end. I had to cook because I had to eat, and there was never any love and passion in it. So for me, sitting here and talking about cooking and kind of like revisiting the past is a little bit strange, because it's not something that I ever enjoyed. It's not something that I ever liked doing. And like I say, it was just a means to an end. Because of the kind of like the challenges that I went through growing up, I kind of like started drinking a lot. I started doing drugs at a young age, and I started self-harming. So because of those things also, I didn't eat properly. Yes, I cooked for my family, for my children, and that sort of stuff, because they had to eat and they had to have food put on the table. But for me, there was so much going on in my head, and there was so much going on physically, that the drugs and the alcohol kind of like took precedence to everything. I live with some mental health challenges. And as a result of the drugs and the drinking and the problems that were going on in my head, I made some stupid decisions. My health got really bad. At quite a young age, I had 2 heart attacks. I had problems with ulcers in my stomach. I had kidney problems. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And a lot of times people think that, people with diabetes are overweight. It can also happen to people that are underweight. I really struggled to put on weight. And I ended up in rehab a few times. And it wasn't until I started kind of like working on myself that I realized that I had to start eating properly. Yes, I had to work on myself, but I also had to start just checking on my dog back there. I also had to start kind of like taking better care of myself. And this was kind of like many years ago. And I slowly started being more aware of what I was eating, being more aware of how I was eating. And slowly over time, things started to improve. Still, cooking wasn't something that I enjoyed. I kind of like had this love-hate relationship where we kind of like had an agreement that if I treat you well, you treat me well. And I found things that I really enjoyed eating and that I really liked. And for me back then, it wasn't a problem if I ate the same thing over and over again. It didn't really bother me. What did help me was that I knew that I was going to eat well, if that made sense. In 2006, I moved from Zimbabwe to London because I wanted to have access to more things that would help me. I wanted to work more on my mental health disorders. I wanted to learn more to help people. I haven't always been in this industry. Most of my career has been in the construction industry. I was a quantity surveyor by trade, and a quantity surveyor is someone who kind of like does all the financials and the legals of building, and I really enjoyed it, but it didn't kind of like fulfill me, if that made sense. Yes, it was a really good job, and yes, I really enjoyed it, but because of the problems that I went through in the past with the drugs and the alcohol and my depression and the self-harming and things like that, I really wanted to do something that helped people. So that was one of the reasons why I moved to London, because you have so much more access to everything. And it was in London where I met my business partner, Jerome, at a personal development training. And we both had kind of like very similar dreams and desires. We both wanted to work with people. We both wanted to help people. We both wanted to live in Spain. And in 2012, Jerome and his wife and his little boy Luca and myself moved to Spain to start working at a health retreat with other people, with another health retreat, because we had a dream of opening our own retreat. And it was at that health retreat that we started working at that I saw how important nutrition was. I saw the changes that people made in a really short period of time when they started having better food, when they started having a juice or a salad or whatever it was every now and then. Because sometimes, so often in our lives, and like myself before, kind of like I didn't focus on the quality of the food that I was eating. Like I said, it was just have something that you like, make sure that there's sufficient nutrients in it, and eat it over and over again. And even then, I still had this kind of like challenging relationship with cooking. In 2014, Jerome and I made the decision to open our own health retreat. And I don't know why I'm getting so emotional. It's just kind of like I've told little parts of this story to people when they've asked me about my journey to cooking and my journey to where I am today. And I've done like little parts here and little parts there, but I've never really sat down and shared the whole story. So talking about this kind of like makes me realize how passionate I am about this and how much I want to help people with their relationship with food, with their relationship with cooking. So it kind of like does make me emotional because it makes me kind of like look back and see the things that I have been through. But anyway, sorry about that. In 2014, Jerome and I opened our health retreat, and we had a chef lined up who was supposed to come and work with us, but he never arrived. And we had guests arriving, and one of us had to cook. And for some reason, I made the decision to cook. I don't know if you believe in God or the universe or whatever it is, but sometimes I think we see our biggest learnings when we look back in hindsight. And I said, okay, well, I will do some cooking for a few days because I'm sure that we'll be able to find a chef. And because of my relationship with food, because of my relationship with cooking, I was really scared to do the cooking. But like I said, people needed to eat when they were coming to our health retreat. And because I was kind of like committed to making a difference and to helping people, I thought, well, let me just do it. And I found it really stressful. I found it really frightening. I think that eating is one of the most important things that you can do. And when you prepare food for people, they kind of like put their faith and put their trust in you. I just don't want the microphone to die, so I don't know how long it's going to last. They put their faith and they put their trust in you, and people have paid a lot of money to come to our retreats, and I didn't want them to be upset. And I got into the kitchen, and I remember cooking my first meal and just standing there and looking at the chopping board and these ingredients and thinking, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I just have to do it. And somehow the meal turned out okay, and people really enjoyed it. I told myself at the time that no, they're just being nice and they're just being polite. It couldn't have been that good. It transpired that it was a little bit difficult to find someone to come and cook for us because of the location of the retreat. So it was something that I had to start doing every single day. And what I started to realize is that somehow, and this is really difficult to explain, somehow I just knew what to do with ingredients. And people kept asking me, well, how did you do this and how did you do that? And I couldn't really explain it to them. So I kind of like just laughed it off as a joke and went on cooking the meals. Because of my neurodivergent brain, I find it really difficult to sit down and read recipes because my mind gets all busy. And as I kind of like observed my own journey, I used to kind of like get these pictures, and I still do. I used to get these pictures in my head of a plate of food. And somehow, when I sat back and trusted myself, I was able to create these meals. Now, growing up in Zimbabwe, we didn't have access at that point in time to all the amazing vegetables and ingredients that you have here in Spain. So I remember for the first time seeing fennel, and I kind of like looked at this thing and I'm like, wow, I've heard about fennel, but I've never seen it. I'm going to try and use it, and let me do it. And, you know, these things kind of like just happened in my head, and I saw people getting so much joy and really embracing the meals that I prepared. And it was through the help of a therapist that I slowly started to accept and understand that maybe I had a natural gift for cooking. And since 2014, I've been cooking almost every single day for people. I can't actually count the number of meals that I have prepared over that sort of time. I know that it is close to maybe 20 or 30,000 meals. I've spent thousands and thousands of hours in the kitchen, and I've finally come to accept that maybe I am good at cooking. In 2017 or 18, I published our first recipe book called Fuel, because I had so many people coming to the retreat and asking me for recipes and asking me when we were going to publish a recipe book. And because of the way that I cook, um, I would cook by intuition. I would just trust what was going on and see the ingredients and put them together and kind of like come up with a meal. And that was why I always used to say to myself, oh, but I'm really lucky. It was just a stroke of luck. I don't know how I did that. So being asked to kind of like write a recipe book was really challenging, because I had to stop and observe myself and see what was going on and monitor everything that I was doing and write everything down. And I found that really frustrating at first, because when I am in my creative flow, things just happen. A pinch of this and a little bit of that and that sort of stuff. And because of my health problems in the past, I have a really sensitive stomach. So I found that when I started cooking, when I was tasting everything, I used to get a really upset stomach. But then I started to see that I was able to taste food in my head. Now, I can't explain that, but on Netflix, there's a documentary called Chef's Table, and in one of the episodes, they talk to a chef, and his name is Grant Achatz, and he is from Chicago, and he has a Michelin star restaurant. And part of this guy's story was that he got a tumor somewhere, and he lost his sense of smell, and he lost his sense of taste, and he was still able to create these meals in his head without tasting or without smelling things. And he didn't call himself a chef, he called himself a food technician. And I remember watching this, and you know, it was like, here's somebody that's been formally trained, that knows how to taste things in their head. And I realized that that was what was happening to me. I could look at ingredients, I could look at some spices and understand how they would taste when they were cooked or when their composition was changed. And it was watching that program that kind of like really had a big impact on me. I started to realize that food was an experience, and it was something that, you know, could be enjoyed from start to finish. And because when you're in the kitchen, you have to be quite mindful and you have to kind of like focus. And I found that this kind of like mindfulness and this focus and this being creativity started to become a form of therapy for me. It started to really help me with my mental health challenges. It started to really help me become calmer. But it also started to show me that I also deserved to eat better. And I just really fell in love with the art of cooking. People kept asking me questions, and over time I've created something that I call my food brain. I'll talk about it in another episode. But what I started to realize, that there was an art, there was a psychology, there was a science, and there was a love to cooking. And when you understood the kind of like basic principles, you know, it really is quite easy to cook. But the most important thing is that we have to start to start having a better relationship with food, a better relationship with eating. And that only comes when we start having a better relationship with ourselves. And I found that the better my relationship was with me, the better I cooked. I still don't believe, if that makes sense, that I'm a good chef. A lot of times I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. A lot of times I still put things down to luck. But what I have grown to do is I've grown to trust myself, that if I get this picture in my head, then I'm going to be able to prepare the meal. I recently released my second recipe book, Gareth's Kitchen, the Unorthodox Cookbook. And this was kind of like, for me, I wanted to create this book not only to kind of like give other people things to cook in the kitchen, but also as a marking point for me that yes, I can do that. And that's the reason why I have created the Unorthodox Cooking Academy, is because I have all these things in my head that I kind of like fully don't know how to explain when I talk about it. But when I use my food brain in a tangible way, it really does help people to kind of like be better in the kitchen. So I feel like I'm not even making sense talking about my journey to loving cooking, but I think that you get the gist of it. It's something that I love. It's something that brings me so much joy and so much happiness. It's something that kind of like just excites me and fills me with so much passion, and I just want to share it with people. Because I'm not a qualified chef, I tell myself so often that I'm not qualified to do this and I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm sick and tired of feeling like that. And that's kind of like why I've pushed myself to record this today, to start taking that little step towards sharing these tools, towards sharing these things, the art, the science, the psychology, and the love of cooking with people. So I hope that made sense. I promise that I won't get so emotional when I do. No, I can't promise that. I am quite an emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and at the end of the day, I just want to help people. And I think that cooking is one of the most important things that we can do in our life. And for me, I find it very humbling to be in a position where when we run our retreats, that I can prepare food for people. Because people trust you when you cook. They open themselves up, and just, I find it so humbling and so special. And I'm so grateful for this gift that I have been given. And I think the best way to experience a gift is to share it with other people. So, that was the first episode of the Unorthodox Cooking Academy, a rather jumbled and all over the place story about how I got to this place where I love cooking, and I want to share it with other people. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. Share this link with as many people as you think might need to hear it. And I'm really excited about the community that I want to create, because the Unorthodox Cooking Academy is going to be a place where normal people like you and me can come together and learn things all kitchen related in a relaxed, fun, unorthodox kind of like place. So I'm going to go now. I'm going to finish walking my dog. I'm going to breathe a little bit, and then I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm not cooking today, but we have a retreat starting on Saturday, so I've got some meal planning to do. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.